Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I can tell it's getting close to Christmas. This place gets pretty empty. I'd like to call the regular council meeting for Monday, December 9th to order. First of all, the territorial acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we are meeting on the ancestral territory of the Algonquin-speaking peoples of the Cosepsum and Songhees nations who have stewarded these lands since time immemorial. Next item 2 on approval of the agenda. May I have a mover and seconder to receive the near and long-term agendas and to adopt today's agenda, please. Okay, thank you very much. And Councillor Olson, you had your hand up. So I won't forget you at the end. Any discussion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Mayor's message. Just have a few things here. Just to guess we get close to Christmas here. First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the city staff, in particular, Sandra Russell, for organizing and I don't know, she's not in the crowd tonight, for organizing and the execution of a very successful Colwood Christmas light up last Thursday evening. It was phenomenal. We've outgrown our venue, it looks like. I understand over 1,000 hot dogs were dispensed. It was, as I said before, it was extremely well attended, and I would just like to thank the Red Barn Market and the Royal Bay Bakery for their generous contributions. Second of all, I'd just like to thank Royal Bay, which is PCRE and Gable Craft, for their hard work in organizing the Christmas in Colwood event on Saturday evening at the annual EOA truck parade. Again, another event that was extremely well attended. And we certainly appreciate the contributions from the many sponsor retailers in the Royal Bay Commons. The third item I would like to announce, and I've been given permission to do this, I'd like to announce that we have recently hired our new operations manager for the clinic. And her name is Sabrina Poirier. And she comes to us with a wealth of knowledge as a medical office professional. In addition, again, with permission, we've hired our very first family doctor from London, Ontario, Dr. Cassandra Stiller-Moldovan. And Cassandra will be joining us early in the new year. Lastly, as the holiday season surrounds us with warmth and joy, just on behalf of the City Council, I want to take this moment to extend our heartfelt Christmas greetings to city staff and all Colwoodians. This year, we've achieved so much together, from new projects that are shaping the future of our city to the everyday acts of kindness that remind us what it means to be neighbors. Colwood continues to shine as a community built on care, collaboration, and compassion. Looking ahead, I am filled with hope and excitement for what the new year will bring. Together, we will continue to build a community that values connection, innovation, and well-being for all. May this Christmas bring you peace, love, and joy. From our families to yours, I wish you a Merry Christmas, season's greetings, and a prosperous new year. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 4, adoption. Yes. Sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I was just going to add that we needed to do a minor amendment to the agenda.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I do have a minor amendment, and it's very minor, and that's to 10.1. We're just going to add a reason that we're closing the meeting to the public. In bracket C, labor relations or other employee relations. Thanks very much for reminding me. Item 4, adoption receipt of minutes. May I have a mover and seconder for the adoption of council minutes from November 25th and the receipt of the Environmental Committee meeting minutes from June 17th as published in the agenda. All of this will. Thank you, Councillor Jensen and Councillor, pardon me, Councillor Grove. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Public participation, we had This is the very first time we've had no written submissions received for this meeting, and no members of public have been registered to speak virtually. I will open the floor to anyone that's in the public that wishes to speak at this time. Seeing none, I shall move on to item 6, which is delegations. And we have a delegation from the Greater Victoria Green Team Project Manager, Kaitlin Warren, and her subject is improving health and well-being through environmental stewardship. Kaitlin, you've got 10 minutes. Just push the button there, Kaitlin, after you got her.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Kaitlin. I was part of the Youth Leadership Program through our charity, and I currently run our Greater Victoria Green Team activities. Tonight, I'm excited to share our successes of the past year and an inspiring vision for 2025. The Greater Victoria Green Team is a program of Green Teams of Canada, which is a charity that connects people, builds community, and inspires sustainable behavior through hands-on activities. Our work supports Colwood's big picture plans like the strategic plan, urban forest strategy, official community plan, and the climate action plan. Together, we are boosting health and well-being, building a more inclusive and connected community, growing young leaders, protecting nature and restoring habitats, and preparing for climate change challenges. Since 2014, our partnership has grown into a model for community engagement and environmental stewardship. This partnership supports Colwood's climate action plan by advancing nature-based solutions, increasing urban tree canopy, and empowering residents to create healthier and more resilient community. I'm excited to share with you our updated statistics that have been accumulated now that we have finished our activities. So please ignore the numbers that you are seeing before you. We have just completed 20 activities in 2024. 10 of these activities were invested by the City of Colwood, and 10 of them were sponsored by Gablecraft Homes. Across these activities, we engaged 963 people, which was about double what we engaged last year. These participants contributed 1,760 hours, and 16% of them were introduced to Colwood Parks for the very first time. We also engaged 651 students from Royal Bay, Dunsmuir, and Wishart schools. This growth has allowed us to create regular opportunities for residents to connect with nature and with each other. People of all ages and backgrounds have told us how much these activities mean to them. They help them feel closer to nature and to their neighbors. They give young people leadership experience. They boost mental health, inclusion, and community pride. And they bring hope, connection, and a sense of purpose. This work is directly helping Colwood achieve its goals for a healthier, more inclusive, and resilient community, as outlined in the strategic plan and in the climate action plan. Together, this year we planted 579 native trees and shrubs. We removed 158 cubic meters of invasive plants, and we revitalized 3,953 square meters of habitat. Part of what makes our community activities so impactful is the opportunity people have to see the results of collective action right before their eyes. Being able to transform a park from this to this in only a few hours is a very empowering experience. Working alongside someone, digging out a root crown together, or helping save a tree with a new friend are all experiences that have profound impacts on us. Experiences like these combat environmental hopelessness and inspire sustainable behaviors. In 2025, we have proposed 3 different partnerships options. The first is a growth opportunity. We propose that the city invests in 20 activities and we will fund an additional 5 activities for a grand total of 25 activities. The second option is to maintain 20 activities, where the city invests in 16 activities and we will fund an additional 4 for a total of 20. The third option is that the city invests in 12 activities and we fund an additional 3 activities for a grand total of 15 activities. While any level of support will have a very meaningful impact, the growth option represents the best opportunity to meet the growing demand from residents and teachers to deepen engagement and amplify the benefits for Colwood. We believe that an investment in the growth option in 2025 will enhance community well-being through physical and mental health benefits, strengthen social inclusion and foster a sense of belonging, support youth leadership and engagement, and inspire the next generation of change makers, and advance key objectives in Colwood's strategic plan, urban forest strategy, and climate action plan. This is an investment in a healthier, more connected, more sustainable Colwood. This year, Gablecraft Homes sponsored 10 activities and doubled the impact of the 10 activities that were paid for by the City of Colwood. A continued investment by the City of Colwood will enable us to sustain and expand our activities and leverage sponsorships like Gablecraft Homes and potentially build onto more sponsorships to maximize the community benefits of our partnership activities. By continuing to invest in this partnership, Colwood can set a benchmark and be a regional leader for sustainable, inclusive, community-driven growth. Together, we have already achieved so much, so let's keep building on this momentum in 2025. Thank you for your leadership and support. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Kaitlin. I will turn it over to Councillor Grove. David.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kaitlin, it's been a pleasure for me to attend some of your events. And the more I attend, the happier, healthier person I am. And on Saturday was a prime example where we started in the rain and ended in sunshine. And the Colwood Creek keeps looking better and better. So I'm hoping that council will be able to find a way to, well, of course, keep things going. And I think the support's there. And we can discuss any kind of growth items. I think tomorrow we start with budget. Hopefully something will come up. Anyway, thank you all very much. It's always been a fabulous experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Grove. Any other questions from council? Seeing none, thanks very much, Kaitlin. You folks have just done a wonderful job throughout the community. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to consent agenda. There's only one item on the consent agenda, and any councillor can move it or take it off. Councillor Jensen, Councillor Day seconds it. And discussion, seeing none. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. And we move on to new business. Iain, are you going to do the introduction?
Thank you, Your Worship. So tonight we've got a presentation from the Westshore Chamber of Commerce. They're proposing a 36-month contract with the city to define the service arrangement between the city and the Westshore Chamber of Commerce. This would provide greater financial certainty to the chamber and also provide clarity to the city as to the services that we provided in that term. Currently, the city provides funding to support the Chamber of Commerce through an annual fee for service transfer that amounted to $16,000 in 2024. The annual contributions proposed in the 3-year arrangement are approximately equivalent to the amounts budgeted for in the 2024 to 2028 financial plan. This includes a 2% inflationary escalator. Staff are recommending that council give consideration to the proposal for a 3-year arrangement through execution of the proposed contract, which is attached to the staff report as Appendix 1. I also like to just point out that the 36 months time frame, excuse me, was proposed to match the lifespan of the current council's strategic plan. So some thought was given to not necessarily fettering the next council as it comes in with a new strategic plan. At this point, I'd ask that Your Worship give Julie Lawler, Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce, the floor.
Thank you very much. Julie, welcome.
Thank you. Iain. There we go. Thank you, Iain, for that introduction. And I would just like to start by thanking Mayor and Council and staff for the many years of partnership that we've had with the Westshore Chamber and the City of Colwood, and for the inflationary increase to our fee for service in 2024 as we recover from the impacts of COVID and inflation. So just a few slides so you have something interesting to look at while I'm speaking. This is a shot of the Chamber staff and board. And the Westshore Chamber is governed by a volunteer board of 12 directors and has 2 full-time and 1 part-time staff and 1 dedicated volunteer Chamber ambassador. So interestingly, we started as the Colwood and District Chamber in 1956. We served those doing business in what's called the District of the Westshore. So that is View Royal, Metchosin, Langford, the Highlands, and Colwood. And we acknowledge with respect that these municipalities are on the ancestral territories of a number of Coast Salish First Nations, including the Esquimalt, the Songhees, the Chianu, and the Malahat First Nations. So we are one of 5 chambers of commerce on Southern Vancouver Island. And while we liaise and work together on regional advocacy and events with other chambers, each chamber of commerce is independently constituted under the Boards of Trade Act. This photograph is taken in Kelowna in May of this year, and this represents a gathering of executives from across the province who come together for a conference every year, as many of us as can get there. This just represents the amount of work that we do together, constantly talking across the province as well as across the country with our colleagues to come up with ways to better serve the community. We're a nonpartisan, not-for-profit membership organization that exists to promote business and economic growth, advocate on behalf of local business, and participate in enriching the community. And we're grateful to be part of a community that is constantly growing and changing and is extremely vibrant. And at our heart, chambers are about connection. And I'd like to speak to this with reference to the support that we provide to the City of Colwood, Colwood businesses or initiatives that benefit Colwood. So we're a trusted source of information. This was made abundantly clear during the pandemic, and we share out information via our e-news and social media channels, as well as direct email to both members and non-members as appropriate. So topics range from training opportunities to funding announcements, as well as news from the City of Colwood. Our e-news and social media is open to all. We provide an information service to the community, responding to queries via email and phone, providing referrals and contact details, and introducing people to each other. We like to say that if we don't have the answer, we can find someone who does. And we provide opportunities for people to come together to learn, celebrate, do business, support each other, and support charities and nonprofits. And so this slide here on the right, I am giving a check to the Y from $4,000 that we raised at our Viva La Westshore fundraising event. That's me on the other side for the Pacific Center Family Services Association in Our Place, coldest night of the year. This did not mean to be the Julie Lawler photo show, but it's amazing how many pictures I'm in doing public things. And then on the bottom, that is the mixer that we had at the Children's Health Foundation. I think that was in June. The Westshore Chamber provides low cost and reliable support and services to the community, businesses and nonprofit can get involved with us in a variety of ways, including becoming a member, but not only that. We share business data, concerns or issues with all levels of government and communities. We communicate out our responses, updates, and queries, and we act as a conduit and advocate for provincial and national issues. We also connect on municipal issues. So for a Colwood example, on August the 7th, we sent a direct email out to those in our database listed as being in Colwood about the North Latoya corridor consultation, which went out to 296 and was opened by 153. So that's 52%. And we convene, facilitate, collaborate, support in a whole range of areas. So for example, we're currently working with Royal Roads University on a work integrated learning project to more closely connect businesses to, students to businesses and nonprofits. And we've also supported RRU's grant application to Pacific Can. So just a quick snapshot of our facts and figures there. We have 407 members, of which 88 are Colwood based. The City of Colwood provided us with a $12,000 fee for service payment from 2016 to 2023. And the Westshore Chamber also had a fee for service relationship with the city prior to 2016. For 2024, the city approved a catch-up inflationary increase to take the fee for service to $16,000, which has helped us achieve a balanced budget after small deficits in 2022 and 2023. And while the Westshore Chamber has an active and growing membership fees only make up 41% of our budget. Our next highest source of revenue is events, followed by fee-for-service agreements. In 2023, just anecdotally, our membership had not started being impacted by inflation, but in 2024, the amount of growth has definitely slowed. So we are certainly seeing the impact. And obviously, uncertainty is not good for business. And we've seen a fair bit of that this year, and we're looking into it into 2025 and beyond. So we appreciate the consideration of Mayor and Council in considering the community service agreement to formalize this area of funding and our work. We do also have fee-for-service relationships with the City of Langford and the town of View Royal. So just a little shot from Viva la Westshore that we did, not Viva la Westshore, sorry, Vision Westshore, getting all of my Westshore events mixed up. This was obviously the dinner that we had last year with representatives of 4 out of our 5 municipalities. So we're committed to providing all of the services listed in the proposed community services agreement, and we are interested in doing much more. Just today, I had a meeting about expanding provision of services to small businesses in the Westshore and beyond, which coincidentally happened on the day that the news broke that the nonprofit Small Business BC has declared bankruptcy. So the need for services to the business community is, if anything, more than it was last week. And in addition, as I consider what we're going to do for 2025, always very interested to hear about how the Westshore Chamber can support the City of Colwood in achieving its official community plan and its aims. There's a lot that we can do together to help support the business community and also to meet aims that we share. So I hope this provides you with sufficient information and not too much, but thank you for the opportunity to present to you today, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Julie. Maybe you want to introduce your new president.
I'd be delighted. So our incoming president and vice president for a number of years is Kelly Darwin, who has come here today to also be here with me. So thank you, Kelly.
Thanks very much. Any questions? I have a quick question, and as you know, I'm a big supporter of the Chamber of Commerce, being a former president. But I was approached by a business in Colwood, and I don't know what created this, but they were talking, and I don't know the difference. They were talking about my feelings about a formation of a downtown business association. So could you maybe clarify what the difference is between what the chamber does and what a DBA would do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got business improvement associations, of course, in other areas of our region, and you find them across the country. They are generally focused on marketing in a very particular area, whatever is prescribed, and it's funded by taxation. So the difference would be that we, as an organization, obviously are open to people who want to support us as membership. But my understanding is that for a BIA to be constituted in an area, it would require the city of Colwood to provide that support for that to happen, because there's direct funding, is my understanding.
Interesting. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for clarifying that for me. Seeing no other question, the recommendation from staff is that council consider authorizing the mayor and the CAO to enter the city into a 3-year community service agreement with the Westshore Chamber of Commerce. Councillor Jensen, moves it. Second. Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Olson seconds. Discussion? Seeing none, are there any opposed to the motion? Seeing none, it's unanimous. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item is the City of Colwood Housing Needs Report. I'll get Matt Blakely to introduce it. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I'm pleased to bring forward the 2024 Housing Needs Report for your consideration tonight. The intent of a housing needs report is to establish a method for communities to better understand their current and future housing needs. So to begin, before the presentation, I'll just provide a little bit of background on some of the provincial requirements for the housing needs report. So Bill 44 amendments to the Local Government Act in November of 2023 altered the timing and requirements for these reports. So municipalities are now required to prepare an interim housing needs report by January 1st, 2025, using new provincial standard methodology, which essentially requests that we identify the 5 and 20-year housing needs in our community. So the interim reports were designed to be a simplified update to the existing housing needs reports, which allowed municipalities to quickly update their housing projections without requiring a robust update. And then regular housing needs reports would be required to be completed by December 31st, 2028, and then updated every 5 years. With that said, I'm pleased to announce that the 2024 Colwood Housing Needs Report exceeds the interim report requirements and actually qualifies as a regular housing needs report well ahead of the provincial deadline. So with that, Bill 44 also requires municipalities to update their official community plan and zoning bylaws by December 31st, 2025 to reflect and accommodate the identified 5 and 20-year housing needs. So now that we've covered the procedural requirements, I'll just briefly discuss the 2024 Colwood Housing Needs Report. So in the summer of 2024, the province issued guidance on a standardized approach to developing housing needs reports. Staff worked closely with team members from the Community Social Planning Council and the Social Planning and Research Council of British Columbia to incorporate the updated methodology and develop a new report that meets the provincial standards. So ultimately, the 2024 Housing Needs Report is a comprehensive document that analyzes the current housing situation within our community and projects future housing need over the next 5 and 20 years. Key trends, challenges, and opportunities in the housing market are identified, information which will be critical to developing future housing policy for the city. So without taking too much away from the report, I just wanted to quickly go over next steps. So should council endorse the housing needs report, it will be posted on the city's website in accordance with provincial requirements. Updates, as I mentioned, are required every 5 years. So the next update would be needed before December 9th, 2029. And then staff and Community Social Planning Council are actively working towards completing Colwood's affordable housing strategy. which will seek to create policies that the city can implement to actively address many of the needs outlined in the housing needs report. Staff are anticipating bringing forward the draft strategy for public and stakeholder review and engagement in early 2025. The 2024 Housing Needs Report will also be a foundational piece in updating the official community plan and land use bylaws I previously mentioned. Both those updates are scheduled to commence in early 2025, with completion scheduled in advance of the provincial deadline of December 31st, 2025. And finally, with regards to the provincial housing targets, staff are preparing an update, a 6-month update that will be brought forward to council in January. So now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Lorraine Copas, the Executive Director of the Social Planning and Research Council of British Columbia, and Jenna Ustek, a researcher from Community Social Planning Council of Greater Victoria. They'll be presenting on the housing need report process and sharing key findings on the report. They both bring extensive knowledge and experience to this project and are collaborating with staff on the upcoming affordable housing strategy. So please join me in welcoming them. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Matt.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jenna Ostuk, and I'm a researcher with the Community Social Planning Council. I'm here in place of our Executive Director, Shelley Cook, who unfortunately couldn't make it this evening. I'm also joined by Lorraine Copas, the Executive Director of Spark BC. Our organization, CSPC, has had a long-standing partnership with the City of Colwood, working on initiatives like the Regional Household and Affordability Project, Colwood's Housing Needs Report, and currently the Affordable Housing Strategy. We are incredibly grateful to have partnered with Spark BC on the Housing Needs Report. We couldn't have completed it without Lorraine and her team, and we're thrilled to continue working with them on the Affordable Housing Strategy. And with that, I'll turn it over to Lorraine to guide us through the presentation.
Thank you, Jenna, and thank you, Mayor and Council. There is a presentation. I think there's a presentation that I'll walk you through tonight around just the requirements for the housing needs report, some of the basic findings that Matt spoke to, and then we can open it up to questions that you may have. So now, how do I run this? That? Okay. So as Matt spoke, that in June 2024, certain requirements were introduced for local governments around changes to how you do your housing needs reports. And there were probably 3 specific requirements that were really important to the work that we did. The first was that the province developed a standardized methodology for how you would do housing needs projections going forward. And they set out 6 different categories to determine what your housing targets might look like, or your projected housing needs over a 5-year and a 20-year basis. So I'll walk you through that methodology. They then said that they want local governments to comment on 7 specific areas, and that would include things like around affordable housing, rental housing, housing for families, housing for seniors, housing for persons with specific needs, housing for unhoused individuals. And through this systematic approach, Council could identify where you saw your local needs and priorities and how to best respond. The final piece that was put forward to all local councils is to talk about the work that you've been doing since the last housing needs report was produced and the types of outcomes that you anticipate in terms of meeting the anticipated need. So I'll start with the requirement number 1. The 5-year and 20-year estimates, again prescribed by the province to do it in a certain way, was to look at the number of housing units that are needed for households in extreme core housing need. Households in extreme core housing need would be families or individuals, renters or owners, who are spending more than 50% of their income on their housing costs and who are likely to be experiencing a high level of housing uncertainty and precarity. In order to get a good measure of this housing need, the province actually said to do an average over a number of years. So it's not just a single point in time, but is trying to anticipate fluctuation in this number, but generally to provide local councils with a baseline of is it getting better, or is it getting worse? They also then want to look at the number of individuals experiencing homelessness. And I know that I was here at a previous presentation with Shelley, where the council took time out of your evenings to sit down and actually grapple with that really complex question for the community. The point in time count is one source of data, but the province themselves have been tracking other indicators through what they call the Integrated Homelessness Project. And they use this methodology in order to identify potentially the number of anticipated needs of individuals who are experiencing homelessness, knowing that a point in time count can underestimate that level of need quite significantly. The one that the province is using looks at a combination of measures, including individuals that fall under the category of no fixed address under income assistance. And the idea is that they're tracking fairly systematically individuals that are showing up year over year under this measure and what that looks like across communities of different sizes and types. The idea then is there's suppressed housing demand. This would be individuals who children are staying longer at home because they just can't access opportunities in the market. It would be households that are forming later because having children because, again, there's not the opportunity to move into the ownership. And they have a very complicated methodology, but I felt it was actually a good representation of households then that are delaying these types of choices because of constraints within the market, and that they call suppressed housing demand. Anticipated household growth, you're a fast growing community, one of the fastest in a fast growing region. And so you're going to have certain demand pressures. And this measure number 4 looks at that. Then there's the, how do you create a balanced rental market? How do you achieve a 3% vacancy rate? And what number of units would you have to add in order to achieve this? This one is actually problematic for the city of Colwood in the sense that you do not have a large inventory of purpose-built rental housing, and therefore you don't have a really strong measure on this. But the calculation was done based on the CMHC data. And probably point number 6 then is the one where the province recognizes that these are imperfect measures, but it is actually a comprehensive and systematic approach. And point number 6 then is their buffer, where they know that they're likely underestimating if you just look at these specific measures. And so there's the final measure that anticipates what you likely need in order to have that kind of stable housing market for families, individuals, owners, renters, people with specific housing needs going forward. The report would set out your number, and what you'll see that is it averages to about 255 to 312 new units per year. So there's a certain estimated demand around the 5-year measure. And as I walk you through, I'll show you that again and again, what that looks like in 20 years, evaluated every 5 years. Matt and Iain have already indicated too that the province has given the community a target of 940 units, and that you've been evaluating your progress in terms of meeting that target. So this would be kind of furthering the methodology and bringing everyone into alignment with the province. So then the key areas of housing need I described earlier on, and we'll walk through these. And then the last piece, though, to know is there's one final piece around transit-oriented development. Are you getting your density and your housing units in the right place to really promote that type of complete community approach where we're reducing using more sustainable forms of transportation, creating multiple ways for people to get to work, and just doing that type of work? I think one minute. So that we'll get to as the measures I would have looked in on that is the success of Colwood in terms of creating more jobs within the community, therefore fewer people commuting, as well as I started to look at the number of households moving to Colwood and the types of needs where they're living in Colwood, but definitely working outside of Colwood, potentially because they can't afford housing in the community where they work, and you've become an affordable housing choice. And also just different patterns of how people travel to work. So the last requirement then, before I get into the specifics around the need, would be the requirement of the actions you've already taken. Colwood represents, in my mind, a community that takes this seriously, that has been stepping into that space to try to create the kind of housing that you need in the right place. You've established the Housing Reserve Fund. You're examining how you integrate these policies into your official community plan. You're highly committed to different forms of housing types, mixed use, mixed income housing developments. When I attended the last workshop, there was a lot of talk about the valuable partnerships with the nonprofit sector, with the private sector, and how your council goes around leveraging those opportunities. There are certain policies and guidelines using your regulatory controls where you can around smaller lot sizes, around different housing types. And then there's a strong commitment to true community evidence-based research to really understand who you're leaving behind. So there's a number of actions that you can stand on that are really important actions for how you really do get ahead of a housing crisis that pretty well every community in BC is facing right now, in Canada in some ways. You also use your zoning and regulatory powers. You're streamlining the development approvals process and then the effective partnerships that I described. So how do we walk through the key areas of focus? Affordable housing is one of the areas where you were asked to comment on. So again, it's understood that you have about 1,130 people spending 30% or more of their income on their housing. It's more likely to be owners, 680, but you have 450 renters. The challenge for owners is, again, interest rates have gone up, so more households will be struggling with mortgages, and you have a high number of young families who have mortgages. So there's going to be a certain amount of housing stress among those households, but you were able to help them get into the ownership market and they have an asset. For renters in this type of housing situation, it can be a more serious situation that if they don't have the ability to close that affordability gap, increasingly they will become those households in extreme core housing need that are spending more than 50% and that don't have viable options necessarily if you're not able to increase the supply of affordable housing that really gears the rents to the incomes. You've had success in adding non-market housing. In fact, we did a longitudinal picture at the back in Appendix B that shows you've made incremental gains over the years. And you can see that through the partnerships on that night of the workshop, that there are really engaged community partners and an engaged council. Right now, you have about 462 units of non-market housing. The rental housing, 73% of households in Colwood are owners. So again, you have strong ownership success and in fact, a good mix of ownership units. However, as the cost of ownership increases, you can see that this is going to have a backward impact on the rental units. And I know that night when we did the workshop, there was concern about how you gain that incremental supply in rental housing and across the different income thresholds. The low vacancy rate, again, will have the potential to push up rents. And perhaps the biggest challenge is that a large percentage of your stock is still in that secondary rental market. So 63.2% is in single detached, semi-detached row house units that are rented that could in fact move into the ownership market, therefore having the potential to displace renters. So that's a definite pay attention to as you go forward in terms of how you get that more permanent supply of rental housing. You've had success. So again, looking at your housing numbers, the report will show that the community has had success in developing new purpose-built rental housing, and that since 2022, about 199 new purpose-built rental housing units have been created. The price point for the units based on CMHC's rental market data is still high for many lower income households, but more affordable than other parts. It's about 1,850 per month. And this means though a household would need an annual income of about 74,000 in order to carry that housing. There's an estimated 550 households in Colwood who are in core housing need in 2021 and 350 in extreme need. So housing for people with specific housing needs, you'll see that the housing needs report language we call the special needs, but many people in the community recognize that that doesn't fully understand the depth of challenges that people face. And so I've switched it to specific housing needs. Often that is people who require accessible housing, who have a mobility or other related type of disability. It can also include inclusive housing for families and individuals where the individual has an intellectual or developmental disability, and communities might identify other specific needs. The province themselves has used the word distinct housing needs in belonging in BC and has indicated that they will be looking at this specific category for funding going forward. So it's something that we should look at carefully and in a considered way, but I know that Colwood does that. And these were the types of needs that I feel often get missed in these types of conversations. Housing for seniors, you recognize you have a large seniors population and that these seniors are a mix of owners and renters. For sure, there's been a real commitment to try to provide that expanded range of housing options and to recognize that your population is continuing to age and therefore you really want to be responsive to that need. Housing for families, again, the conversations with staff, there's real awareness that Colwood's become an interesting mix of households that have found ownership opportunities in different ways, and that it's really an important part of how the community is moving forward. And this would include the number of families with children who are moving to Colwood. And I've just captured some of the stats for you, but it also reminds you that while you need the smaller units for seniors who may want to downsize, you also need the larger units for families moving to the community. Homelessness and at risk obviously is an important category, and I know one that you are really anxious to get better and more complete information. If I were to look at the estimate, it's about 49 units based on the provincial methodology that you likely need in that transitional supportive end. But again, you all know the community at best, and I know that there's deep engagement on this conversation. And for me, then the households in extreme housing need, if it's going up, it's a signal that you're going to face bigger challenges. If you're able to stabilize that through more non-market housing, then it's a chance to get ahead of some of those needs. Transit-oriented development is again the mix of housing and transit options. And again, the dials are strong, although Matt was very quick to point out to me that a lot of people worked at home in Colwood during the 2021 census, because that was also during COVID. So that number might be artificially high relative to some of the opportunities emerging, and that the 2026 data will probably tell us more. So where does this take us? The report provides you the updated information, the deep technical appendices. I always try to include the regional and provincial data, because often as you come across a question, you'll ask, well, how are we doing relative to others in the region? And how are we doing relative to the province? So it gives you a bit of a benchmark that way. It would definitely focus now on the tying strategies and actions for the upcoming affordable housing strategy that Matt spoke about. The methodology itself estimates to need somewhere between 1,562 new housing units over the next 5 years and 5,111 over the 20 years, which averages out to that 255 to 312. And again, updated every 5 years, and that staff would say that you are on target for the on course to achieve the target that the province has set, and have put a lot of the tools and measures in place. So that, I think, covers the highlights. I'm welcome any questions you have.
Thank you very much, Lorraine. Great presentation. Open it up to council for questions. Councillor Jensen.
Geez, I don't have much. I did write down extreme core housing. I think you defined it in there. That's 50% of your income. Okay, got that picked up. And pressure points as you see them for us, or stuff that we need to monitor the next few years. Clearly, rental housing. I'm detecting a theme here, and purpose-built rental housing, not the suites in a home.
The rental is a really critical piece. So you're definitely in a growing region and a growing community. And so the rental piece will be under stress, especially because the large proportion that's in the secondary rental market. But also there's the continued need for affordable housing. While you have 462 units, you have a lot of partnerships and assets that are tied into really how do you meet the needs of those lower income families and lower income seniors. I think also I would say that in a way, I look at mixed income and mixed tenure. So like, how do you create that balance as you go forward around your income distribution? And that's an important data point, like how many people you have with incomes under 20,000 would then be able to afford a rent of 500 versus you actually do have a good median income profile. You have people in the community who are doing well. So it's looking at that lower end that I'd say all communities are still struggling with. Do we have enough of the right type of housing at that end?
Thank you. And I did note affordable housing here, and I like your explanation there because, boy, I think we struggle as a group to trying to find, first off, define what that is and how to deliver that when essentially, market forces largely dictate. So then how do we get into that space and whether a community such as ours should be forced into that space because of some kind of downloading or irresponsibility on other levels of government. And so I struggle a little bit in that area, but I do believe that, we've been blessed with a fair amount of older non-market housing that did establish a foothold here in our community, clearly in the 70s and the 80s. So, and now we're seeing some of those that are going to be reimagined and perhaps even increased density. So thank you. This is great. I love it. I like the detail and I like the background. So thank you so much.
Councillor Day.
Thank you. I think I heard you say that you were determining that mortgage rates were at least potentially partly responsible for unaffordability. And I was just wondering how you came to that conclusion.
So this is just generalized. Again, you do have a large number of households that are in the ownership market, but who have a mortgage. A lot of those households would have previously had variable rates because the rates were actually low. I think in the last number of years, mortgage rates have moved up, and this has created a lot of stress for people who would have had variable rates and not fixed rates. It will be coming back down, but in this current period in time, that is definitely contributing to the housing stress in communities. But again, it is largely the growing demand pressures, ownership and rental, that I think is pushing the price of housing up.
So yeah, I guess what I'm looking to get at too is local versus non-resident landlords, because the rental buildings that are brand new and built within, say, the last 5 years that people are wanting to rent are expensive because they're brand new. And at least some of the targets, I mean, it depends when you started counting as to how you feel about those mortgage rates. All of mortgage rates right now are a lot lower than they were, but the prices for homes is a lot higher. So bigger debts, smaller cost to service them than perhaps 20 years ago, for example. So I'm just curious how, when we look at some of the targets, I think there was a target to get, what's the word for that? There it is. The rental vacancy rate to 3%. Is that a provincial target?
That is using the provincial methodology, but the issue is that the province under that methodology is anticipating only the CMHC purpose-built inventory. And so it is missing a certain segment of the market, which is your secondary rental market. And because Colwood has a larger proportion in the secondary rental market, that number will be underestimated. Again, when you look at that, they've put the whole picture together and done a lot based on the estimated growth in the community. There's a catch up, but if you were just to go on that measure alone, it would definitely underreport.
Yeah, so I moved to the Greater Victoria area about 40 years ago. I've never seen it at 3% vacancy rate in the entire region. So not that that means that it could never be done, but when I'm looking at what we can do to make affordable homes for young families to feel comfortable in, I hope that we don't spend a lot of time worrying about the 3% vacancy rate. I
No,
want them just to have a house to live in.
and in a way, though, your point is a really good one, that the market has never been balanced, that it's been tight, and now it's even tighter. When people, during COVID, people moved and the entire market repriced to 30% because of the vacancy decontrol. So if you don't have enough rental and then your people are competing for that rental, it's just going to keep pushing the prices up. And I think that's the intent behind that measure. But you're right, that measure alone is an imperfect measure. I always think of it as two things, and I also can tell that you think very deeply on this, so I'm hoping I'm not wasting anyone's time. But it's an income problem. So I always look at that income distribution and just try to pay attention to who might be left behind and who wouldn't have the means to access that market. And then it's a supply problem, and it's a shortage often at that lower end. So then you look at how do we increase that supply? Interestingly, you have had great success in adding non-market housing. It's largely family housing, and with an aging population, I'd look at the number of seniors in the market who are renting and try to figure out then that right income mix to make sure that people aren't being displaced. And I think that's what is the intention of this extreme core need measure of the province. The last thing, because I think Matt's going to shut my mic off. The last thing I was going to say is, you know, back when Canada had a national housing program, everyone in core housing need was considered eligible for social housing. So when you look at that core need measure, previously all of those households would have had been considered eligible for housing, and there was more of a true supply program. And in some ways, this report is trying to kind of capture how far behind we really are in all communities, and then bring those partnerships and those resources together. And it would be fully understood. The municipal toolbox, all the regulatory measures you can adopt won't be enough to fully fill that gap. So you do need those other partners, but hopefully the data helps to move it in that direction.
Thank you.
I have a quick question myself here. Oh, two questions actually. So, you know, the measures that you use for your H&R methodology and how you determine the housing types, how do you reconcile that? Like, what I always find interesting is that I refer to our H&R, our current one, and then I have all these developers come in and they tell me what kind of housing. So it doesn't seem to match sometimes. So how do you reconcile with that, and how do you take that into account? Is that sort of a measure too that you look at, you know, and from their perspective? Like, I guess it's a market perspective.
I think if I'm understanding correctly, so the H&R itself is prescribed by the province.
Right.
But they're not saying whether it's ownership or rental. So if you can be successful at achieving affordable entry-level ownership, that is really strong. But you also know you do have a certain segment of the population who will need rental. So I think it's starting to track those measures. And in my mind, it always ends up being that you're doing a mix of ownership and rental, that it's fitting well with that income distribution, the profile of people in your community. And then you look at people who are typically disadvantaged by the market. In the Lower Mainland, so Vancouver, there is a developer, for example, that recognized that families of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities would be left behind. And that developer intentionally is creating 2 or 3 units within that development that are smaller, that are at a more affordable price point, and that can create access for individuals. So again, then I go for mixed tenure. And so you're constantly, you will always know your community best, and you will be starting, I think, looking at these measures about who are we missing as we do this.
Okay, thank you. And, you know, just in your professional assessment here, so how do we compare? Are we a B, C plus?
Actually, I've been bragging about you since I was at the last workshop. And so there are many communities that aren't as deeply engaged and aren't pulling as many levers. And even truly from my Metro Vancouver experience, for a community of your size, you've done amazing. And it is the partnerships and the authentic engagement of these questions that'll keep you going. But thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Great. No other questions? Matt, do you want to say anything further? Okay, that's great. Lorraine and Jenna, thank you very much for coming out tonight. That's great. Thank you. So the motion recommendation on the floor is that council endorse the 2024 City of Colwood Housing Needs Report dated November 2024 for master planning purposes, and that council directs staff to post the 2024 City of Colwood Housing Needs Report on the city's website in accordance with section 585.4 of the Local Government Act. Any motion? Okay. Councilor Grove and Councilor Jordison, please. Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries unanimous. Thank you very much. Excellent. Okay, we get on to section 9, bylaws, bylaw number 2041, Colwood Land Use Application Procedures, bylaw number 427, 1998, amendment number 4, notification distance, it's adoption. Motion, please, Councilor Jensen and Councilor Olson. Discussion. We'll move down. Discussion. Seeing none, any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. And 9.2, sewer local area service enlargement amendment bylaws adoption. Bylaw number 20. I should get you to read this. Please finish the term.
Bylaw number 2046, Colwood Main Sewer LAS enlargement for 3347 St. Troy Place. Bylaw number 2047, Colwood West Sewer LAS enlargement for 3347 St. Troy Place. Bylaw number 2044, Colwood Main LAS enlargement for 506 Perks Road. And bylaw number 2045, Colwood West Sewer LAS enlargement for 506 Perks Road. They're all for adoption.
Motion, please. Councilor, he doesn't want to stick his hand up now. Yeah, Ward's finished. Councilor Olson and Councilor Grove, then, thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you very much. And at this point in time, we'll take a motion to close the meeting to the public. Thank you. Councilor Ward. And Councilor Olson seconds. Just take a 2-minute recess here and let everybody clear out of here.
Yeah, it's my neighbor. I'll never get